before we go too much farther, getting the rest of this mocked up, and we've got the instrument cluster now and a doubled in base for the radio. We need to start working from the firewall forward. So we decided not to use the Miata heating and air conditioning system. It's just kind of big and it gets in the way of everything. So we went with Vintage Air, and we ordered I guess you can get the box. It's like a mock-up kit. So we ordered a mock-up kit, and we're going to try that out and see how it fits. Gave Vintage Air a call the other day and told them what I was working on, and Javier was kind of like, yeah, we haven't done something like that before. So I gave him the rough dimensions, and he said, yeah, let's try this system out. So they have this mock-up program where you can, I think it was $80-some, but that's with shipping. It only took like 2 days to get here from Texas. But they'll send you out one of these mock-up cases with the brackets and everything. So I think it's a really good deal. And if it doesn't work, all you do is pay to ship it back. They'll refund you your $55 or whatever it is. But with all the projects we got going on, we'll probably keep this to use it for mock-up for something else. We're going to put it in, see how it fits. Looking places to put this. Originally I wanted to put it over there in a glove box or behind a glove box. Didn't want to fit well. So I thought, well, I got all the space back here, and that's where the original Miata one was. I thought, well, wonder if it'll fit there. Yep. So the two outlets in the back, there and there, are for defrost. And if I read right, there's 3 in the front here. Look like big Lego pieces. Those are for the dash. So I think this will work. It has a little bit of interference with the back of the radio surround. I think we can work around that. I'm going to reposition the radio, but all in all, we'll see if that works for us. I have to do something with our bar that goes across, but we can work something out. But that's where we might go for now. Might raise it up a little bit. That foot pedal's gonna, or the accelerator pedal's gonna move more towards the center of the pump. So it'll be over here and drop down. So I think we'll just have a little corner that actually sticks underneath the dash. But so far I'm happy with that. We'll see what we can do with brackets and move on from there. Well, I hated to do it, but we took the last part of that dash out. The only thing that was really holding it on is a little spot over here at the bottom and across the top there. But nothing else is holding it on, so if we can find a way to put it back in, we will. But we'd already talked about, since everything on this side is going to be custom, and all this is going to be custom, we might as well make that custom too. So I just think it's going to make it a lot easier to mount up the box with the mounting brackets. So right now I'm trying to figure out, you can see there's one here, yep, one there, one there. There's posts where the Miata airbox sits at. So now I'm trying to see if I can utilize those factory mounting points for the new one. So we'll get back to you if I figure anything out. I think I finally came up with a way to mount a tube, a square tube, 1.5 by 1.5 tube, that'll go from the passenger side to the driver's side, kind of like we had before, but I want to make it removable so we can get the AC system out. So I started with a prototype just to get the fit where I could get it to fit in the car on a flat surface. And then I made this up. This is for the driver's side, so 1.5 tube will slide in here. And we'll probably put holes or something to bolt it in place, and put little 1/8" holes so I can click it in place. So I got the AC mock-up from Vintage Air, and I think it's going to fit really well. So it's got 2 defrost and 3 vents. It does defrost, heating, and air conditioning. So the way I have it set up right now is there's a couple mounting spots in the back. You can see I have a piece of strap there. You can see there's all these little mounts like this, but the ones in the back are actually threaded. So there's 2 in the back, and then there's a spot up in there for a bolt hole, and there's 2 in the front. This sticks out a little bit farther than what I had that tube in before, but what I think I can do is angle it in place. Here I have the passenger side tube mount. Just kind of click it in place. So I was able to get it front to back where it's level. But it has a little bit of an angle at the top, so it's about 2 degrees. But I think we can build that into our design. But it gives me a nice flat surface to weld on. As you can tell, it's right opposite of the hinge. So if we slide our tube in there, should make it nice and strong in case there's a accident. Let me see if I can get my light set up here. So I had a little piece of 1.5" by 1.5" by, I don't know, thin wall, but it's 1.5". As you can see, that'll sit right in there. So it's flush mounted on this surface, and I have about 20 to 40 thousandths clearance here, which would be fine. Main thing is that it can sit in place, and we can use it to do our design to make the tube go all the way across. So now let's get the passenger side one put in place. Well, the next thing to do is get our bar mounted so we have something to build the rest of the dash off from, and everything is going to attach to it. So I got these structures all made so that this bar can slide in and out of it. I got it click out onto the A-pillar on each side. And then we need a way to put in the AC system. Well, the box, condenser box, whatever you want to call it, sits out this way a little bit too far for this tube. So what I have to do is cut this somewhere in here so that this tube can move out, but I wanted to be able to support that. So I made up a couple little plates, just one here and one up here that attach to the dash, and I just brought up this brace to support that. So I got this one fitting good. Now we're going to have to move over to that side and get one made up for that. Well, that ought to work. So these are just temporary prototype, whatever you want to call them, just to make sure everything works. Because there's a lot more work to do in here with the AC condenser and all of that stuff, duct work, wiring. So we're just going to use this as a prototype. And let me show you what I did on the other side. This is what we did on the passenger side. Just a little bracket. I don't like it too much. It's only got 1 bolt in it, but we'll learn as we go along. And we'll probably chop this off, right in there on this side, so we can put everything in, but at least that'll give us something to prototype off from. So we'll get this out of here and get it chopped off and see what we need to do to put the AC box in. So we got it tack welded really good. Just again, just for mock-up purposes. I got it tightened down. Seems to be fairly tight. So the next thing I did was try the accelerator pedal and the steering column, and they have a little bit of interference. So this part of the accelerator pedal is interfering with this mount here. So what I'm thinking about doing is either bending this or just lopping it off. And then we can use that mount up there that the strut's mounted to make it all work. So maybe I'll try to bend it first, see if that clears it, and if not, I'll just lop it off. Oh yeah, passenger side one's on too. Well, everything's in there now, using the mount I originally had, but I think it's probably moved down a good inch, because you can barely get your legs underneath there. Bubba's got much bigger legs than I do, so I think what we'll do is at least move it up probably 2 inches, and then we can play with the front and the back position later, but I think that's pretty close front and back. But pretty happy with that so far. And this seems to be nice and rigid. We've got our steering column mounted in there with one lower mount. You can see, hopefully, we'll go over to that bolt for the strut and make a mount for that in the future. But right now everything clears and everything still moves, so that's a good point. So it's the end of the day, but we'll get back at it tomorrow morning, as long as it's not, as long as it's over 40, because it's cold in the garage. Well, we're on version 1 of the mounting plate. The first thing is this was hitting part of the cowl area, so I cut that off. It used to extend out here, so I just cut it where the lightning part was. But good news, the mounting holes for the evaporator box is working well. I think that's what it's called. And I got the holes all aligned. But there is one problem. This hole and this hole are on one plane, but this needs to, the threads just barely stick through on this side. So we're going to have to set this back. It's about a 1/2 inch. So I'll build something like that. And of course, build another one of these, but I've just tacked the mount together, but it's not tacked onto here for any of these. So we can reuse these pieces. Got to redesign that. So here you can see the bracket in the car. That's red to cut out because this area here swoops out, of course. So we're hitting on that one. That's good enough. That's good enough. The hole location is there. Oops. The hole location is there, but it's sticking out about 1/2 inch. So we'll recess on the next design and see what we can do with that. Well, there we have it. It's just sitting in there. So the recesses are not welded in yet. Just wanted to make sure everything fit. So it's now, doesn't rock. Last thing I got to do is check to make sure those are still in the right place. We can weld that up and then make some sort of front mount. We got one side mount to make yet, but that'll at least get us started. Well, there you have it. Revision 2. The plate is now bolted in the car, and went ahead and put the tabs on for the evaporator housing on the bench before I tacked them on. So everything is just tillage tacked together, just on the surfaces. But we'll go through and weld it up later. But the next thing I want to do is put the housing in and see how it sits. Well, there you have it. So it is bolted to the bracket in the back, and this is just to take the strain off because there's only, of course, 2 mounts holding it in back. You can see up here, got to build a little mount for that screw, and then I've got to build something across the front. But right now, I'm very, very happy with that. You can see from the side, we still have plenty of room. Put a dash in place. So the next thing I'm going to look at, before I get too crazy building this mount here, is look at the defrost ducts. I think it's the ones in the back actually. Start mocking those up, see what I can do there. But right now I'm liking that position. Got just enough room, about a finger's width right there. Of course, plenty in the back here, and I did check it. It's within, I got some clearance in the holes, but it's within 4/10 of a degree this way, and I've got it blocked up basically level this way. So, happy with it so far. Let's move forward. It's been about a day since I've recorded anything, and I thought I'd better catch myself back up and catch Bubba back up. So this is the front AC evaporator case, I guess you want to call it, mount. So this would be the passenger side. This would be the driver's side by the column. So as you can see, 2 holes go to the case. And then this bolts onto that short piece on the driver's side. There's a plate that'll weld onto this. And then this will be a bolt-on piece that goes from the bracket to the mount, the big mount that goes from the firewall. And then up in here is where the steering column mount is. So what I'm getting ready to do is I need to I have a little plate here and some weld nuts. And I'll weld this onto the end of that so that it all bolts together. So I'm going to make sure this is flush mounted on the end, make sure it lines up, and we'll weld it together. Got that little plate welded up with the 2 weld nuts on the back. And while that was cooling, I decided to work on this. So these are little 1/4 nuts, bolts, that actually hold the evaporator housing to the mount. And I just had a hole drilled through there, so I had a clearance hole so that you can run a 7/16 down through there. But if you ever drop the bolt, that was going to be an issue. So I went and opened up those holes, got a piece of tubing that fits into, and I just finished drilling those out. So yes, they do fit. We got 1 for each. And I left them a little long. So I'll go ahead and tap those in and get them nice and square, and weld those together. So I got everything tapped in. Of course I left them a little long because you can always grind those down. I got the bolts in, and now you can kind of see in there. I've got enough clearance to run my socket down in there and be able to tighten those in. So we'll go ahead and tack those in place. Move on to the next thing. As you can see, I got those tubes tacked in place. They aren't going anywhere. And you can't see them, but the holes are nice and centered up. So I can still get my socket in there. And then I went ahead and tacked that up flush. So that this piece, for the steering column mount, bolts on just like that. So we'll do a little grinding there and put it in the car and test fit it, and let's just see what it looks like. So there we go. There's our first mock-up with everything got it bolted together here. Of course, you can see there's bolts through there. I'm dropping stuff out of the car. But I have that front brace at about 0 degrees. And the side brace about 0 degrees. Of course, we'll have plenty of room with bolts and clearances and that to make them nice and straight. Put the housing straight, and then I just have a plate clamped on, as you can see over here. So I'll be welding those 2 together, and then what I plan on doing is drilling some 1/8" holes and cleccoing this piece to this piece, a couple holes just for alignment, and then I'll come back and drill some holes to make them final but I'll do the same thing on that side, so that is the next thing to do. But right now, I think that looks pretty good. I haven't finished welded anything yet, because, you know, things can change, but I'm happy with it now. So we'll do some alignment holes, get things a little bit better secured in place, and then we'll bring you back. Here's the passenger side mount. That's how it sits in the car. And I went ahead and aligned this because all I wanted to do was make it flush around the edges. So I drilled some 1/8 inch holes. Then I figured while it was off, let's finish it. So got some 5/16. I think they're grade 8. Close enough. But got those in place. Just some temporary bolts. And we will put this on the car and tack this end. Oops, sorry. We will tack this to the front evaporator core mount. So I'll show you that when I put it on. I don't know if you can read that, but that's sitting on one of the duct surfaces. It's one of the flat places. There's a few other ones. So that shows about 1/10 of a degree. And then I put it on this surface here, which goes across, and it's about 1/10 of a degree. I got my passenger side mount back in place. So what I'm going to do is just tack that in and pull it off. Put a couple more tacks on it, and we'll see how it looks. So we have everything in 2 pieces now. So you can see I've got this bolted up and this tack welded on, 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. And then I went ahead and, using my 2 Clecos, lined this up. And there were some existing holes, because this is the same plate as here, where there's 2 holes. So I just drilled and bolted those through. But what I'm wondering is that those 2 bolts are way back here. So this gives some flexion in this. And since we're bolting from here through here, I might go in and actually just weld this together. Make that one piece. We don't have so many bolt apart pieces, and it still allows room for the evaporator housing to come out. Leave that in place. So we'll check it out. Nothing I have to do right now, but it's just something to think about for the future. So everything back in the car. I only have 1 bolt there because I think the bottom bolt has some, shall we say, weld bead or something in it. So I don't have a 1/4-20 tamp with me at the moment, so I'll go out and get one of those. But otherwise, everything else is bolted in the car all the way across. And I lost my light. That's very sturdy. So yes, I'm sure it's way overbuilt, but we're going to use this for the next phase of the operation, which is mounting in a double DIN for a radio with a touch screen and all that fun stuff. And we got the console to put in place. A lot of that will mount to it. We can probably also, probably can't see it now, make some mounts or something to mount the instrument cluster to. And of course, the glove box and all that stuff. But that was a major hurdle that is now done, and I don't think that'll ever go anywhere. I have noticed, looking at some of the pictures from Vintage Air, that there's a tube that comes in here that has a connector, so I might have to clearance this in the future, but we'll wait till we get the final system and put that in place. But right now it's tacked in enough, good enough for development work, so we will keep pushing forward. I think I'm going to take a lunch, and then we'll come back and find out what next thing we're going to tackle.